Double busy, getting busy, do. Yo, what's up, It's me, the double busy. It has been far too long since I have gotten to play some Crusader Kings 3. Before the Thanksgiving break, I was actually more busy during Thanksgiving break than I am normally during the regular week. So, Dev Diary, number 45. Free features. As you all know, they have added a ruler designer, but the cool thing here is that it works with achievements. If you spend under a certain amount of points in the point system that they have, you can still complete achievements. So that's pretty cool. They have added functionality to attach armies to allies located in the same province. So I'm still going to control armies probably all by my own while we're doing siege battles and while the enemy still has pretty big troops. But for a situation like a crusade, you might take some men-at-arms regiments, attach them to somebody else and let them just roam free. Or if you have beaten down your enemy and they have nobody left, no allies, and no troops that can really stand against you, you could go ahead and attach to an ally and let them lead the way. Balance added a new game rule that controls the AI's willingness to do matrilineal marriages. So I need to remind myself to test this and see if this is going to affect our ability to use matrilineal marriages in order to gain knights, faeries, or champions. Cats and dogs now live a bit longer, appear slightly less often, and trigger events less frequently. They did have a lot of events, but I feel like I didn't see cats and dogs very often to begin with, so that part kind of saddens me, but the triggering events less frequently is a good thing, I think. Great Holy Wars cooldown between them is increased all the way up to 30 years, up from 5. So this is going to help especially for people trying to do things like the Al-Andalus achievement that I just finished recently. So you're going to have a lot less Holy Wars against you. Successful Holy Wars now affect fervor significantly less. So, for example, if you fight a Holy War against a neighbor, it'll reduce by 1. If you go for a duchy, it'll be 2. And if you go for a kingdom level, it'll be 5. So just individual rulers going for Holy Wars is going to be a lot less significant than the Great Holy Wars. Halved the impact of fervor on the speed of converting faith. Converting a high fervor faith as a low fervor one should be no longer be impossible. So that was a huge problem when you were the Christians in Spain, Castile, Galicia, trying to convert Mualati. And you always had to go with one of the lifestyles in learning just to be able to convert those final couple counties. Having a strong hook on your realm priest causes them to pay you max contributions as if they endorsed you with 100 opinion. That's pretty cool. Yeah, if you have a strong hook on somebody, they're going to do what you say, and they're going to pay you. In Independence Wars, ticking war score is now given to the revolters if they fully control all the revolters' domain, while the defender gets ticking war score as long as they occupy at least one holding. So basically, if you have like 5 counties revolting and you never go fight them, it's going to start ticking against you. Eventually, you're going to have to go fight them and take over one of their holdings. No longer possible to send your court chaplain, spouse, or concubines to a foreign court as a guardian. This was a way to get rid of terrible court chaplains who had really low ratings. I don't know if we can still do this within the realm, but definitely cannot be done in a foreign court. Men-at-arms maintenance cost can no longer go below 10%, so no matter what, your men-at-arms will always cost a little bit of maintenance. Made hostility due to conflicting wars a lot broader. Now it applies to defensive wars too and propagates to vassals. So this tells me that we're going to have to be more careful in fighting wars and knowing who we are hostile with. So remember, the enemy is red, but hostile is that kind of orangish color. Got to be careful and keep an eye out for your hostile factions or hostile neighbors. Male-female only realm law now consistently blocks the other gender from inheriting claims. Obviously, that was a problem as people were trying to find ways around the Confederate partition. Only the holder of a holding can cancel construction now. No more canceling your vassal's construction to get money. One proud Bavarian showed this. He showed this exploit where you could cancel your vassal's buildings and then get the money back for yourself. The first army of the siege controller that has a commander now determines the siege commander. Also, the first army to arrive at a siege now controls the siege. So whoever shows up first gets to control the siege. And then whichever army is first and has a commander, that's the commander in charge of the siege. Third-party occupations, now in the owner's favor for the purpose of taking war score. So for instance, peasant rebels or warring vassals occupying part of a war goal no longer mean you as the defender stop taking war score against the realm you're trying to take land from. Okay, so the way I think this pans out is, let's say you're attacking an enemy. Let's say that enemy also is getting rebelled or revolted against. If the peasants go in and take that land and that holding, it was not helping you in the past. Well, now it can help you. Titles with male, female only preference will now get handed out according to partition if your realm law is partition and all your partition heirs are the title's preferred gender. So again, you can't just add a law onto a title when that law basically already existed in order to skirt partition. So people have been trying to find ways around partition. They're cutting that off. You're going to have to fully experience partition. You can no longer manually add gender law exceptions to your held titles. Again, people are trying to get around partition. You're just going to have to deal with it. Vassals will no longer convert their capital when you demand their conversion. Ouch. That was an important one for the Reconquista. Buildings now give percent modifiers to men-at-arms stats rather than flat mods. Should prevent stat inflation. Okay, so this was pretty good. I remember seeing some posts on the forum where people were complaining that it was too easy to just pump up their stats, have 1,000 men-at-arms, and basically go mow down anybody in their path. Well, here you go. Now it's only percent modifiers, so it's going to be like a return on investment thing. The bigger it gets, the less return it's going to give eventually. Wandering characters of the player's dynasty no longer spend money on self-improvement, prevents an exploit where you could load your heir with gold and kick him out of court. I did not know about that exploit, but good to know that that's been blocked. Probably especially if you're playing multiplayer or if you're just trying to be like a little more historical. When feudalizing, there's a random chance for city or temple to spawn. Higher development increases this chance. This is good, and I think this will help people stop trashing feudalism and going feudal and the transition from tribal to feudal. You can now arrange marriages for all your descendants, not just your direct children. I like it, especially if it's grandchildren, and I know that they're going to become my heir someday. Reduced overall effectiveness to light cavalry in the main phase of combat. They were simply too cost-effective for the stats they'd bring. Light cav still excels during the aftermath, as well as their preferred terrain type. So I didn't realize that they were doing too well, but I kind of understand where they're going here. Increased county opinion bonus for putting down a peasant or popular rebellion by 150%. Increase the duration. So if you put down peasants or a rebellion, people's opinion will be higher and last longer from that. Just characters no longer gain stress when they execute someone if they also have a faith with the human sacrifice tenant. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. If you already believe in human sacrifice, shouldn't be too big of a deal to execute people because they're not really being executed, they're being sacrificed. I wonder how this is going to affect revoking titles and retracting vassals. Remember that you could retract vassals or revoke titles in certain conditions and not gain tyranny, but when you got to the confirmation window, it would say that you were going to gain tyranny, and it wasn't clear whether or not that was actually happening. So I'm curious if that's been fixed. Reduced amount of levies and taxes gained from tribal obligations. So they're down to 75% levies, 40% taxes. That kind of makes sense. Like, no matter how much a vassal loves you, no matter how famous you are in a tribe, they're not going to give you literally 100% of their troops. Significantly slowed down fabricate claim tasks when targeting vassals. So I guess that kind of makes sense, right? Like, within your own realm, your vassals are known to rule that land. It's going to be hard to fabricate a claim and say, oh, no, whoops, just kidding. Technically, that actually belonged to me. Embassy's perks now has a maximum number of skill points it can give out. Sound Formation perk has a maximum number of skill points it can give out. So it's going to be a lot harder to have 100 stat man or 100 stat woman using those kind of things to get infinite skill points. I wonder if the part about making friends and having each friend give you a skill point is also going to be affected. AI will now abandon sieges blocked by a bigger garrison. Good, so they're not just going to stand there beating their shield and making no progress at all. Gave the AI a few lessons on closely following player units and promptly joining battles. They should take their toys and go elsewhere just because supply is briefly too low. So hopefully AI will do a little bit better job in helping his allies. Inform the AI that it might be a good idea to not count allied vassals or lieges when deciding whether to declare war or not, with it being impossible to call them into wars. Yeah, so if they're your vassal or your liege, you're not calling them into your war. You can't. So shouldn't be in the calculation. Taught the AI how to better balance its budget. Interesting. I didn't know that they tried to balance the budget. I'd be curious to see those numbers to see what do the devs think should be like the gold standard. See what I just did there? For balancing your budget. The AI now tries to quickly get a handful of men-at-arms, slowly buys some more until it feels like it's spent enough, and not just stop outright at the minimal amount. That's good. I have noticed that in Al-Andalus and in Reconquista that they tend to get like 1 or 2 regiments of men-at-arms, and then they just stop. So, good. Continuous growth. AI should be better at recruiting cultural men-at-arms variants, recruiting less of the base unit. So basically, the cultural variants are better, right? Good example is caballeros versus light cavalry. Yeah, their stats are basically the same, but the caballeros are able to excel in the hills, which is very important in the Iberian Peninsula. So in general, the cultural variants are better. Hopefully this also means that you're not going to see like caballeros and light cavalry combined at the same time. I remember having an heir take over and had both of those at the same time, and basically I had to waste some money getting rid of one of those regiments because it didn't make sense to have 2 of them. AI is now more inclined to build buildings in its realm capital rather than evenly distribute through the domain. Yep, makes sense. That's what I do as a player. I think that's the smart move, right? Build up your capital, build up your county that's your main county so that you will always be strong no matter what. You're always going to have at least one county. Even if you're a king or an emperor, you'll always have that one county to work with. To make a holy order, it's now enough for the Pope to simply dislike the AI rather than needing 60 plus opinion. The 60 plus still persists for players because we like to see them grovel. So if you're a player, you still got to make the Pope like you a lot. For the AI, they basically just have to be at like a +1. Told the AI, even though holding is the wrong type to own, it's a good idea to build in it so you have each type and can build what you really want. So it sounds like the AI was getting stuck on a castle, would not build temples or cities so they can move on to even more castles. Told the AI when it has multiple possible CB targets in a realm, probably a good idea to pick the one that's bordering it rather than picking one bordering the sea. Yeah, so you don't want to just pick a sea target because you could lose that like an exclave. You want to pick a target that you're actually bordering so it'll become part of your realm and not get lost in succession. Generally lowered AI aggressiveness, they'll declare fewer wars overall. Okay, I think that's pretty good. They seemed a little bit trigger happy. Not too much, though. Interface, characters get a weight target checked once a year rather than every 3 years. Okay, so remember people were saying didn't feel like you could lose weight very quickly? Well, now it's going to get checked every year instead of every 3. Toggling nudity is a setting rather than a game rule, so you can do it on the fly. That's good. Should help people who are recording not have any mistakes. Reworked the dynasty window to include information about how house and dynasty heads are chosen. Military strength can be seen and compared between house heads. Dynasty legacy area has a more compact way of showing the tracks you've unlocked. So basically everything around your dynasty, who's the head of your house, who's the head of your dynasty, what your relative military strength is between each other, and what legacies you have unlocked is all getting reworked to look better. I have seen images of that in some videos on YouTube, so I think it is going to be a little bit better, a little easier to work with. Reworked battle window for looks and functionality. I have played that a little bit, and it looks much better. You can see the progress bar on the top very clearly. Basically, just everything is a little more clear and concise and easier to look at quickly. Coat of arms of human players now decorated to make it stand out, so it has kind of like this golden flare coming off to the sides, so it's easier to pick out where your capital is. Probably also easier to see humans in multiplayer. I hadn't thought about that. Raising a rally point that will result in an army above supply limit. Army will be raised and split into adjacent provinces. Should make dealing with supply easier. I don't like this one. I prefer micromanaging. I like to raise one giant army, try to quickly march them over there and just decimate the enemy and get rid of them, wipe their stack as soon as I can, in however many battles that takes. And then go to a siege, get them down below the supply numbers, take the extras, and move them on to the next siege. And that way I can siege 2 or 3 things at a time and not worry about an army coming in and hitting me while I wasn't paying attention, doing other things in my realm while my armies are sieging. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to raise them, form them all up, which is going to take like a week or 2 to get them all into the same province, and then go do what I like to do. So this is pretty much the only thing I don't like about the changes they're doing. Added reactive advice when you've reached the maximum bonus amount a perk can give. Okay, so reactive advice, that's pretty cool. Added text on war overview, the hostages are going to be released. That's helpful because I've had a few instances where I thought a hostage would be kept, and they weren't, and I should have ransomed them. Fixed overlapping siege and battle indicators on map, that's good. So that's going to help clear up the view when we're looking at the map. Siege notification says who is besieging, and the title has the location in it. That's good. So if you accidentally right-click it, it disappears, or if you wait too long, it automatically disappears. Now you'll be able to see exactly who and where you're getting sieged. Text area in toasts now provides full toast text as a tooltip, especially useful if they're too long to display. So you can hover over it, get a tooltip, and get the full text. When an event kills you, you have died screen only shows up after clicking the event away. This is good. I remember having an incident where I got poisoned and killed in Reconquista. Thanks, Alfonso. And the screen that said you have died came up before the screen about eating the poisoned duck. So it should be the other way around. You should get the poisoned duck, and then you die. Art. Tribal holdings look different between major tribal regions on the map. So their tents look a little bit different depending on where you are, and that's pretty cool. Characters young enough to be sitting in the main menu now sit in front of the others. No more having the shy trait. Just kidding. Reduce the threshold at which a unit gets improved visuals. Now only armies with the lowest quality are unarmored, making armored units more common. So they're just making it so that I think 2 diamond units that are kind of low quality but not the lowest are still going to show a little bit of improvement. Audio added more prominent sound effects to the top bar notifications for alerts, reactive advice, and diplomatic actions. Okay, that should help notice them better. Added war horn sound effects to the 100% war score notification. So right now it's just kind of this like chunky metal clank sound. Having a war horn go off kind of gets your attention a little more. That's nice. In localization, I didn't see anything about the Pope's opinion showing up when you're going to ask for gold. I remember that being a problem that I suggested they fix. When you go in the menu to ask the Pope for gold and you see your 2 pictures, it would be nice to have his opinion number sitting there staring you right in the face, rather than having to click on him, pull up his character screen, and go see what his opinion is of you. I'm going to leave that there, actually, to remind myself that I want to go look and see if that's been fixed. Game content. Schemers no longer safe from discovery until the scheme executes. So apparently you could just kind of scheme and not get caught until the very end. Added 4 new murder outcomes. 2 more child murder outcomes. You monsters. More claim throne schemes, fabricate hook schemes, seduction schemes, game concepts for hostages and prisoners, ongoing murder events. All kinds of stuff they're adding in the events. That's awesome. And that's all free. Like, that's normally stuff I would think of showing up in a DLC. So that's pretty impressive that it's coming in a patch update. Using demand conversion on a vassal, they can request a favor instead of just cold hard cash. I like that. Favors are important in this game. You can now become infirm. I didn't know you could not become infirm before, so I didn't realize that. Okay, bug fixes. Guardian's personality will have a larger impact on Ward's personality. I wonder if I can still do this thing where you switch after age 13, right? Get your 3 traits, switch after age 13, and get your education trait. I wonder how much that affects you. Like, let's say that you switch them to somebody who has a 4-star learning trait. Are they going to get less of that learning trait because you're switching them so late? I don't know. Added a perspective to the warning about a character being pledged attacker. So I remember having problems with this where I pledged, I gave money, but they said, months later, hey, you still haven't pledged for the Holy War. And I'm like, yeah, I gave you money, Pope, don't be mad. Added a recently converted trigger so that less flip-flopping happens in heresy events. Okay, good, yeah. Whenever there's a heresy, boy, a lot of people are switching back and forth, and it's a mess, especially in all the messages and notifications. Added a notification if a courtier is invited to another court. So I wonder if that's what was happening where some of my commanders were disappearing, especially when I had military siege engineers. All vassals now get shiny buildings if you adopt feudalism. Good. Okay, so not only are you going to get some random cities and temples based on your development, but your vassals are going to get some buildings too. That's good. People will stop trashing feudalism now. Electors now correctly evaluate how scared they are of their liege's dread when casting a vote. Okay, so that's important. If you're going down the tyranny dread route, you definitely want that to be a factor in the vote. Fixed electors sometimes believing a lower tier candidate would rule from abroad. I think I had that problem before when I was playing up in Sweden and Norway. Fixed holdings not going out of the domain limit grace limit when leased out. I had that in Al-Andalus, actually. I leased out a city to a holy order, and it was still considered part of my domain. Fixed holy orders being unable to hold cities. Good, awesome. Unfortunately, it's still not fixed that they can build or upgrade by themselves, and you still cannot build there for them. In fact, I got a message from someone at Paradox that said that's intended because they are not your vassal and you are not their liege. Well, okay, I leased the property out to him. Like, isn't that even more than a vassal or a liege? Like, a vassal, we know, is the ruler of their land and owns that land. But leasing it out, everybody knows I still own the land. I'm just letting them use it to be a holy order. So I think I'd have even more control over that city than if they were a vassal. Fix not being able to disinherit your own children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren if they weren't at court. I had that happen during Reconquista. Made somebody the beneficiary of one of the holy wars over in Syria, and then I could not disinherit them. It was like a third brother or a cousin or somebody like that. Friendly Council now has a cap of how many stat bonuses the perk can give. Yep, okay. So again, not going to be having 100 stat man or 100 stat woman just because you can befriend everybody. Guardians now probably return to where they came from when they finish their education. So you can't send your court chaplain off and have them stay away forever. Eventually they come back. Oh man. If you convert to feudalism, all your vassals jump on the hype train. Good. No more of this half in, half out nonsense. This one was just hilarious. Intelligent women no longer confront their pregnant lesbian lover to ask if they're the father of that child. Stupid women, however, still have a chance to ask that question. Like, yeah, if you're intelligent and you're a lesbian lover, no. You are not the father, Maury. Knights in an army should now also gain the Crusader trait. Thought that was already supposed to happen. Glad that they fixed it. Mercenaries and holy orders now correctly counted when calculating max military strength. I wish they would put in a little bit of a delay or an announcement for hiring them. I remember the Reconquista. I could not hire my own holy order because they got hired so fast. I wish there was even just a 2 or a 3 day delay to be pop up in a notification, hey, somebody wants to hire your holy order. You have right of first refusal because you're actually the leaseholder. Do you want to hire them or not? Playing as Dorama and embracing your son as your heir will now move him to your court. That's going to be good for when we eventually do that achievement. Previously discovered innovations are now carried over when a character takes Portugal decision and becomes Portuguese. I remember that happening and people complaining about that. The amount one gets from demanding payments capped to 50 gold. No! And is based on their ransom if it's less than 50. Oh, so no more demanding payment and then getting 130 gold for a demand payment out of a fabricated hook. Yeah, I guess that was a little bit too strong, wasn't it? Retracting vassals interaction now gives tyranny if declined. Okay, so if they decline to retract the vassal, hey, you're going to be seen as a tyrant. That makes sense. University can be found at Infest. The Al Mahdi holy site was moved to a neighboring barony to not cause conflicts. Okay, that's nice. Vassalization and subjugation CBs now properly usable by non-independent players. All right, so if you have a liege, you are non-independent, but you might still want to be able to vassalize or subjugate. Okay. Updated a bubonic event to not show the court physician twice. I actually reported this one. I'm wondering if mine's the one that maybe got it fixed, so that's cool. Like the court physician caught the bubonic plague and reported it about himself. So I thought that was funny. When you embrace English culture, all your vassals join in on the hug. That's going to be good when we do William the Conqueror. Whether you can imprison a vassal that refuses conversion or not is now made clear in the interaction. Good. I want to know, if he refuses, am I going to get to imprison him? That's going to help clear some things up very much. Can no longer promise a Holy Order land and not give it to them after you get the cash. That was happening a lot. And it was related to all those problems where they couldn't hold a city, all kinds of problems with Holy Orders getting cleaned up. That's good. You can now denounce and disinherit dynasty members that are not of your faith. Ooh, I kind of like that, right? Hey, you don't want to be in my faith? You want to be a heretic? Or you want to be a blasphemous infidel? Well, I'm going to disinherit you. You no longer be urged to imprison a vassal's random courtier. Yeah, we were just getting too many of those messages. If you didn't imprison them, it was just annoying. If you did imprison them, usually you couldn't get anything out of them anyway. They didn't have any money. And it would just upset a lot of people and give some bad opinion. You're no longer advised to increase control in the county your marshal's already working on. Good, because I was having to sit there and manually unclick that notification to get rid of it. Okay, that's it. That's what I think was super important from Dev Diary 45. Have a couple things to watch as we play. And now it's time to finally go play some more Crusader Kings 3. Okay, I'll see you in the first episode of the next series. Double busy, getting busy, do.